He's going to be playing against Brennan Decandio, a player who is from the Florida area. And when we do head down to the Florida area, we do oftentimes see him in the elimination round, a member of Team Next Ridge Nexus. Those guys and gals have put up some pretty nice finishes recently, most notably with Black-Green Delirium and Black-Green Aetherworks Marvel as well. They shake hands and they get ready to kick off our first round of action here. We got 3 days of coverage to bring you, and we are going to start off, as I think we're going to do quite a bit here, with a Black-Green Delirium mirror. Now, standards we talked about in our pregame shows, Brennan will start off with the Hissing Quagmire. It kind of revolves around this deck, Patrick.
Yes, it's the consensus best deck. There are some holes in the armor here, mostly getting under them very, very quickly. But it's very powerful in the middle games, it's powerful on the battlefield, and you have the best top end in the format in Emrakul.
Brian played a Blooming Marsh and a Vessel of Nascency, and Brennan did the same thing, but his was on the second turn as we head over to Decandio. We'll see this third turn will yield. Now, the thing about this deck, Ishkana, obviously huge for this deck. Getting Delirium, pretty trivial, honestly, not very hard.
Especially in a matchup like this, where they're not under duress early on in the game. Sometimes when you watch it play against vehicles, for example, it has to spend its earlier turns just blocking and casting removal spells. It can put it a little bit behind on achieving Delirium on time. In the mirror match, though, you've got the first couple of turns to just set up shop here, so both players should be playing with Delirium on the key turns.
We've got Vessel of Nascency. Brian's going to take a Grim Flare. Looks like a Liliana's going to go to the graveyard or grapple with the pass as well. So already almost there. You see the Grim Flare there face up for Brian. That's actually in his hand. He might just be casting it this turn as well, as he does take a draw and will reevaluate his turn. For the world champion, BBD, it's been a banner year for him as well. Obviously winning Worlds is certainly going to do that, but he's taken a step forward in his game. A player we've seen at the Players' Championship before. He's certainly in the running to actually win this thing, as he's going to play a Hissing Quagmire, Grim Flare, and pass the turn back. For Decandio, he'll draw a card, a Grasp of Darkness. He'll get a clue after playing that Swamp. And Grasp can take care of this Grim Flare right now if he'd like to. He does have some options here with Vessel and cracking the clue with Tireless Tracker, all that good stuff.
If he'd like to, he can simply hang back on defense. It's possible that BBD will make a play here to force the issue of achieving Delirium, and then the Grass could be a good tempo play.
You see in Decandio's hand, he does have a copy of Ob Nixilis as well. Now, he has mulliganed once this game, but, you know, it's actually pretty easy for this deck to kind of undo its mulligans with Tracker and Vessel and stuff like that.
Yeah, Decandio also playing Ob Nixilis for good measure this weekend, another good way to recoup lost cards.
So after the attack, crack a clue, deal another point of damage. Brian going to go down to 16. Grasp of Darkness takes care of the Grim Flare, and we'll head back BBD's way.
The matchup can take on a very chess-like feel because the deck is so redundant, and you have Traverse the Ulvenwald as well.
And Brian with Delirium online, he'll play a Grim Flare. This one will be a 4/4 as we'll head back over to Decandio. A Swamp here for Brennan. Keep in mind, has not cracked that Vessel just yet. Another clue, however, on the way. Could go straight to Ob Nixilis this turn. Take care of the Grim Flare. That's kind of the level 1 play. What's interesting about that is by doing that, Ob Nixilis would fall down to 2 counters.
It's picked off by the Hissing Quagmire.
Absolutely. And I feel like in a matchup like this, where card count is so important, you almost want to get more out of your Ob Nixilis.
Well, the alternative argument here is you play Ob Nixilis, you get in for 4 points of damage. It is almost BBD's entire turn to take care of the Ob Nixilis on the way back. You're still at parity in terms of card count. You still have a clue here in a Vessel to work with, and BBD takes this hit and takes 4 this turn, and potentially could take 5 or 6 the following turn.
And it does not look like Brian has the grasp, so
this
deal 4.
And this line of play looks really bad if BBD does have a grasp from Decandio, but because BBD allowed Decandio to untap, play a land, and get a clue, Decandio correctly guessed Grasp is not in BBD's hand. He would have taken care of the Tireless Tracker on his own turn.
Well, again, Brian does have Hissing Quagmire among his lands, has the mana to activate, but he's going to go to maybe the best card in the format, some could argue, an Ishkana Graph Widow. 3 spiders on the way. Nicholas is going to go up to 3. Decandio will lose a life to draw a card. And that's a lot of power and toughness for 5 mana, Patrick.
It's a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
You get a lot of numbers for this with this card.
A Vessel will be cracked. Decandio will take a look at a Grim Flare. Let's say 2 of those, along with a Forest and a Noxious Gearhulk. Noxious Gearhulk, a card you see in Delirium, is typically a 1-of.
Decandio, I believe, on 2 this weekend.
Okay. Brian with just 1 in his main deck. You can find it via Traverse. Good to get back with Liliana. Looks like he's going to go with Grim Flare, however. And go ahead.
No, I just the opportunity cost for, passing through some of these 1-ofs is so low because this deck is so equipped at getting creatures out of the graveyard that he could just get that back later should the game slow down a bit.
So it's interesting, right? Stage 1 of these mirrors is kind of revolves around Grim Flare, maybe Liliana. Now you get into stage 2. It's like, all right, well, Ishkana has shown up. All right, well, I got to kind of work my way through all these numbers, as you so eloquently put it. And then if you work your way through the first Ishkana, you might deal with the second Ishkana, as here's Noxious Gearhulk from Brian. And then we work ourselves into the Traverse Emrakul game. So there's nothing short about this.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Track her down. Brian going to gain some life here. You gain life equal to the creature's toughness in Noxious Gearhulk. And now here comes the spiders, and this is a good enough attack. And it's going to probably take care of Nexus. Here is a Grapple with the Past. So hissing Quagmire. Ishkana as well. Now that might be of interest for Decandio to get back.
Especially now with 6 mana in play, with land number 7 rolled up. And BBD has taken some lumps early on in the game here. Not inconceivable, BBD is lacking removal and access to Emrakul, that Decandio could simply hide behind his own Ishkana and finish out the game that way.
Interesting decision here for Brennan, however, about what to get back and where this game is going to go. Because as a Delirium player, as it looks like he's going to get back Noxious Gearhulk, you mentioned how easy it is to get stuff back from the graveyard. As a Delirium player, it's always in the back of your mind of not only when can I cast Emrakul, but when can my opponent cast Emrakul.
Yep. I imagine Decandio doing this, getting back the Noxious Gearhulk here with the intent of shooting down BBD's, pressuring, getting to hit with the Grim Flare, which is always a little bit of a prize.
Oh, here's a draw step. Looks like Grasp of Darkness was the draw.
And it is a challenging mirror match to play because you can tell that card advantage, presence on the battlefield, what's going on with your graveyard, who's winning the race to Emrakul, general card advantage, all of these elements are factors into the lines of play both players are taking here.
The other thing is Grim Flare is going to come across here for a bunch of damage. Is if you've never really been in the mirror before, you are at a disadvantage.
Yes.
Because you have to pivot very quickly to, I'm in this stage of the game, I'm in that stage of the game, I'm in the Liliana stage, I'm in the Ishkana stage, I'm in the Emrakul plus Traverse stage. Changes very quickly. Brian has Liliana now. He will minus. Grasp, and I believe To the Slaughter will go to the graveyard. 1 main deck copy of To the Slaughter for Brian this weekend. He's going to get back Noxious Gearhulk. It's a Gearhulk off. Now here's a Grim Flare. Pass the turn back over to Decandio.
Now Decandio from the Grim Flare hit last turn, I believe left Ruinous Path on the top of his library.
There are worse places for that card to be. Interesting decision here for Decandio. If he wants to cast Ruinous Path, does he want to do it for 7? Does he want to do it for 3? There's certainly some value to having a 4/4 creature on the battlefield.
He can also just hang back and crack his Vessel and his Clues this turn and wait for more information and more mana before making a move, especially because BBD just got back his Noxious Gearhulk, and that might be the best thing to get off the battlefield anyway.
Yep. Don't forget as well, Decandio does have also Grasp of Darkness in hand too.
Right. Which is another incentive maybe to hang back a little bit this turn, because if you expect BBD to take the obvious line of Noxious Gearhulk, shoot down your Noxious Gearhulk, the battlefield looks juicy for an attack, and then your Grasp might come up and be very productive.
We're going to start with the Vessel. Hissing Quagmire, Tireless Tracker, Grapple with the Past, and another Grasp of Darkness. Decandio will select the Tracker. You'll see the spread graveyard. If you're kind of new to this, what Delirium players do is they want to know if they have Delirium, but more importantly, how close they are to casting Emrakul.
It is an annoying part of that design.
Yes.
It's not a binary on or off sort of thing, like Delirium is, but it's a counting issue.
And you're also kind of doing it to make it clear to your opponent, too. You know, this is how close I am to doing this. Decandio looks like he wants to come into the red zone here. All right, and he says you. So forget your Liliana. Now remember, Grimflayer 4/4, Noxious Gearhulk, pretty big, has menace, all that good stuff.
And this is a fine spot here for Decandio to be able to use a Grasp mid-combat. He's got a menace threat and a trampling threat, and usually that's a good spot for an instant speed removal spell.
You do have to remember who's on the other side of the table, though. You know, Grasp isn't going to take Brian by surprise. Or any instant speed removal spell. For example, Murder, To the Slaughter, any of that stuff. Not really going to take Brian by surprise.
I guess one of the pressures for Decandio to make this attack this turn is because he's going to lose one of these two creatures anyway to the Noxious Gearhulk. So you might as well get some value out of his, out of both of his creatures this turn. The only way to guarantee that is by attacking.
Brian going to organize some blocks here. Looks like Grimflayer is going to get in front of Noxious Gearhulk. And it looks like there will be a triple block on the Grimflayer. And actually, yeah, he can't block Noxious Gearhulk with only one creature. Menace. Never mind. For the 5/4.
It's a world championship block right there.
It's early.
Everyone's waking up. Everyone's still waking up.
It's early. It's 12:44 p.m. on the East Coast. It's early. Let's give him a little credit here, huh? That's a better block. Decandio will organize the blockers. Here's a Grasp of Darkness. That'll take care of the Grimflayer. Now remember, Grimflayer does have trample, so there will be a trigger. So he'll look at the top couple. There's a Grimflayer up there. Looks like maybe a Pilgrim's Eye too. He left something juicy on top.
I believe a Noxious Gearhulk.
And now the follow-up is a Tireless Tracker and pass the turn back. Now Brian will untap at 7 with an active Liliana and 2 1/2 Spiders. But neither player has worked themselves just yet into the Liliana stage of things. Or excuse me, into the Emrakul stage of things. Liliana will tick up to slow down the Grimflayer a little bit. There is a forest. Here is Noxious Gearhulk, going to take care of the tracker. Brian, anything else this turn? It appears the answer is no. So let's go over to Decandio. Remember, he left this card on top.
I believe this is his second copy of Noxious Gearhulk that was left on top.
Now remember, Decandio knew that Brian had Noxious Gearhulk.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's no surprise. He knew that was coming. Ah, looks like Ruinous Path. Okay. He's going to awaken here and now go after Liliana. Now, Grimflayer a little bit smaller because of the Liliana activation.
But it looks like Decandio will at least get a spider for his trouble.
Yep, and see Brian saying, yeah, I plussed there, so you're not going to take care of my Liliana, and that means that Liliana can get back Noxious Gearhulk.
But then Decandio, in theory, has the trump of the Noxious Gearhulk that is left over, and BBD loses the Liliana as a result of minusing it down to 0.
Yep. So Brian minuses Liliana.
A lot of the same spells being cast over and over again.
That your new hit single you've been working on?
Delirium song?
Yeah. He's been working on that while he's been away from the booth.
Yeah.
Here is Ishkana. A couple more spiders. The follow-up is another Liliana. I have demonstrated the loop. I can do this a long time, says BBD. Any good attacks to be had here? Nope, just going to pass the turn back. All right, Decandio will draw. We can't forget about, too, for Brennan, the 2 clues that are just there.
Yeah, has not had the time or inclination, has had better stuff to do the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if they put enough power into the raised deads in this format.
Raise that Planeswalker.
Yeah.
Raise that instant and grapple at the past.
Yep. That also happens to grease the wheels on a million other little things that are going on in the deck.
That's correct. It's good observation by you.
Yeah.
Good to have you back.
Glad to be back.
Traverse the Uberwald was a good draw.
Sure.
I think it might be, yeah, it's about that time.
A fine choice.
Yeah. Not entirely sure what the cost is, but with the way that Brennan is playing his turn, it looks like he can cast Emrakul right now. So, Brian with a Mind Rack Demon will draw a card. It's a Grasp of Darkness. And Brennan controls Brian's turn. So let the fun begin. Now, Patrick, some say that this card here in Emrakul is format warping and has made things a little, I guess, not particularly fun for players.
So, it is format warping insofar as it's the best big thing to be doing, and that usually freezes out the stuff that's also pretty big but not quite as big. And to me, it's pretty impressive that the Gear Hulks are actually a little bit playable in the format with Emrakul. That said, if you're going to get pushy with a pretty invasive Graveyard Matters design, Emrakul's a fine choice to do this. I think doing an Emrakul every year is a mistake, but you do a design like this every 10 years, I don't think it's the end of the world.
Well, Emrakul was a doozy that turn. Minus the Liana, you see some creatures die. Noxious Gearhulk came back, killed Brian's own creature. Ishkana is in the graveyard now. Now the Liana's going to minus, revealing Grimflayer and Grasp of Darkness. Going to get back, looks like Ishkana again. Now BBD in his hand also has a Grasp of Darkness and a Mind Rack Demon. But obviously in some trouble. The 13/13 flyers out on the battlefield. But wait! There's a Pilgrim Eye.
Good recovery.
Yeah.
Fighting back in the skies here.
He'll play Ishkana and now pass the turn back.
But the best big thing to be doing in a format usually invalidates the slightly less big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sphinx's Revelation crowds out 6 mana and 7 mana creatures.
Yep.
That's how that goes.
Emrakul, well, she is very pushy, but that's by design.
Yes. This is an eyes wide open choice.
Yeah. This is what was intended to have going on. Is here's Noxious Gearhulk going to take care of Ishkana, and now here come the Knuckleheads and Grimflayer, Emrakul, and that 4/4 Swamp that has been awoken via Ruinous Path. And Brian going to try to figure out what the best blockers are, but also the best way to get back in this game. Mind Rack Demon in Brian's hand.
And Decandio had a lot of life too, so racing back not really an option for BBD at this point. This is basically just manage the battlefield as best you can, allow yourself to maybe draw to your own Emrakul or some piece of spot removal that gets the board at something resembling parity, but it's asking a lot here. And BBD probably dead next turn, barring some very good draws.
There are the blocks. Some creatures will die. There will be some trades here. Brian going to fall to a pretty low life total, 2 to be exact. And now we might be in the stage where he needs to draw Emrakul. And he does not, and that is going to do it. So Brennan Decandio going to win game number 1 here over Brian Braun-Duin as the black-green Delirium Mirror thus far goes to the player on the left. We will take a look at the sideboards. I imagine they will be somewhat identical, but we'll start with BBD and his 2 Lost Legacy. 2 Tireless Tracker, 2 Pick the Brain, 2 Deadweight, 2 Natural State, and 5 1-ofs in Flaying Tendrils. Appetite for the Unnatural, Transgress the Mind, Ob Nixilis Reignited, and To the Slaughter.
So I think the approach that I like for the mirror match here is have a couple cards like Transgress the Mind, like Lost Legacy, that allow you to pick apart some of the particular bullets, and then have cards like Tireless Tracker and Ob Nixilis to win the mid-range game. Now that you have some answers to Emrakul that are a little bit preemptive, you might just settle into a mid-rangey green-black card advantage and removal and presence on the battlefield kind of matchup. So the Tireless Trackers along with the Ob Nixilis and some of the pinpoint discard is the approach I would take.
But for Decandio, he's got 2 Natural State, 2 Flaying Tendrils, 2 Transgress the Mind, 2 Lost Legacy, a Gonti, Lord of Luxury, To the Slaughter, and Appetite for the Unnatural, Deadweight, Another copy of Nexus, another Ruinous Path, another Nissa Vital Force.
Kind of the same story here. I like the stuff that allows him to interact with the top end, the sources of card advantage, the discard, and some removal. I think that Gonti is also solid in this matchup too.
Yeah, I think that's a nice little bullet here for the Blackman Delirium matchup. So we'll see if that does come in and how it will do in game number 2 and potentially game number 3 as BBD will be on the play. In the meantime, we are going to talk about SCG Game Night, the very popular promotion that I had to lead with because Patrick doesn't know what's coming for February, but he can see for December. It's Fintuition.
It's been a while since I've been in the booth, so there are some promos here I don't know about. You can head over to go.searchcgames.com/game night to get more information and find the game night closest to you. Stores can sign up for game night via the website or their in-store play representatives. Players then go to the store and play on a given night of the week. Stores can run this sanctioned, unsanctioned, any format. Just get players in your store for some fun and friendly magic. You see December right now, you're playing for this. It's Fintuition, and we have January coming down the pipeline as well. My first time seeing Hold.
We're going to take a look at January. Ready?
Squeaky Cheeky Acorn Breaker. Did I get that right?
That is correct. That is a playoff of?
Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker.
Very good. Now, February, we're actually not ready to reveal yet. We're making you wait.
Yep.
We're making you wait.
This is the first one I think that on my first time reading I had to squint while reading the screen. Anyhow, go.starcitygames.com/game night for more information. Find the game night closest to you. Stores if you want to get signed up. Contact your Star City Games in-store play representative.
Is that the hardest one you've had to say so far?
No, it is not. I'm trying to think of the ones that really tripped me up. This one was not the hardest, though.
Delver Squeakrits was tough for a little while.
That was really rough. That one got me.
And Penguillian Click was also
Penguillian Click was tough. But now all that stuff rolls off the tongue. You know, it's just practice. Squeaky Cheeky Acorn Breaker. Oh, because it squeaks. Squirrels have big cheeks. That's where they have.
You have broken it down.
Okay.
Bit by bit. I'm impressed. I'm impressed by that.
Yeah. Took me a minute there. I just assumed it was some.
Now we have February.
Okay.
You ready now, Brian? Brennan, your match doesn't matter. This does.
Yeah. Put this on pause. Tell them it's up. Corgi Firewalker. That's awesome. That is great.
That one's for you because you like animals. But
I do like
dislike Core Firewalker.
I do. Yep. I do. This is a Core Firewalker I can get behind. Anyhow, that's the February kit. And again, go.starcitygames.com/game night. Find the game night closest to you in stores if you want to get signed up. Your Star City Games in-store player representative. That's the way to do it.
Corgi Firewalker, everybody. There's the debut. That one I'm very excited about. A couple others coming down the pipeline I'm very excited about, but that's very near the top of the list.
It's surprising to me that it took Star City Games so long to get to Corgi.
Okay.
Because Corgis are very popular animals. And
especially
Core
in the
pretty
Magic
popular.
Yeah. But we got there. That's what's important.
Yep.
We got to Corgi. A little bit of exchange of resources here. Grim Flayer dies to Grasp of Darkness. Now, Decandio has his own. Brian with his first 3 land drops. Now here's a Tireless Tracker. Hissing Quagmire will bring along a clue. And we will go back over to Decandio, who will draw a Forest. And now a Ruinous Path. And a hit with the Grim Flayer. We'll get to take a look at the top couple of cards. See where he wants to put them. A couple will go to the graveyard. One will remain on top. We'll go back over to BBD, who's already under the gun from a Grim Flayer. Well, here's Ishkana. That's pretty easy to turn on Delirium with that thing. Now we head back over to Decandio, who's already got Emrakul in hand. Here's Mind Rack Demon. A couple of cards going to go to the graveyard here in Traverse and Lost Legacy and Tireless Tracker and a Swamp.
Which might have been the reason that Decandio left Mind Rack Demon on top of the deck. I don't think it's a great card here since it just trades with removal so often. But with Emrakul already in hand, Decandio has an incentive here to just get his library into his graveyard as fast as possible. You can see his hand right now just lands along with that Emrakul.
Well, we saw Brian have to play defense in the previous game, and he's already kind of behind the 8-ball here. Now there's a Tireless Tracker. Here's a land and forest. Now 2 clues. Ready to pass the turn back. I imagine we'll see him crack a clue on Decandio's end step. But for now, we head back over to Brennan. Remember, for these players, not so much in any of the points races, but The easiest, most clean-cut way to win the Invitational and avoid all the confusion is just win the tournament.
As Brad Nelson once referred to it as a PCQ.
Absolutely. Here's a Traverse the Uvenwald for Decandio. Now it's a Gonti. You had a feeling it was going to come in. So let's take a look at old Gonti, the Lord of Luxury. Now, 2 black for a 2/3. It's got Death Touch because why not? Now, when it enters the battlefield, you get to look at the top 4 cards of your opponent's library. You get to play it. You get to select one, put it face down. It's an exile. Now, even if Gonti dies, you can still cast it.
I refuse to read this card.
There's a lot of text there.
It is past. It is a number of lines and a font size I find unacceptable. I have a general idea of how the card works. We're just going with that.
You have to draw your line somewhere.
Right.
And I'm totally fine with that.
Yep.
I will explain to the wonderful people at home.
You can't just let them get away with anything.
Here's an optics list.
You gotta have some lines.
Going to take care of that Mind Rack demon. Going to fall down to 2 counters. I only know what Gonti does so well because I've never been humiliated as much as... it's been a while since I've been humiliated that badly. It really kicked the crap out of me at the Pro Tour.
Gotcha.
Yes. Really did. In limited. Took my Whisper Weaver Angel. Then it got to Blink. And then it got a removal spell. And then I lost.
Yep. I also lost to that card too, but they basically just had me at 2 power Death Touch.
That was it? That was good enough?
Good enough.
Puts the brakes on. Liliana's going to minus. Decandio's going to get back Mind Rack Demon, it appears. Yes. BBD is going to sacrifice a clue. Tracker's going to be a little bit bigger, so a card on the way. Brian will untap. The texture of this game is kind of interesting. Going to start by ticking up Ob Nixilis up to 3 counters, draw a card. Okay.
And I wonder if that was kind of Decandio's plan here to sit here and wait for BBD to get the Ob Nixilis up to 3, because then when you take his turn with the Emrakul, you get to get rid of Ob Nixilis and BBD's best threat.
Which is probably that Tireless Tracker right now, though maybe it could be the Ishkana.
If BBD happens to play a Noxious Gear Hulk this turn, maybe it's that instead.
Here's a Mind Rack Demon for Brian. Mind Rack Demon, Grim Flayer, Ruinous Path, and Ishkana all to the graveyard, thanks to the 4/5 Flying Trampler. See what the follow-up is here for the world champion. Lost Legacy. Well, well, well. See you later, Emrakul. The tenor of this game has changed.
Yep. I think now BBD has pretty comfortably pulled ahead here as Decandio really falling behind in the card advantage battle, falling behind on the presence on the battlefield battle, was really just playing towards Emrakul, and now that line is taken away now and forever.
Hey, Blooming Marsh will bring Brian a clue, but the most important thing that happened this turn is the card you are reading right now in Lost Legacy. Now, Decandio will get to draw a card because there was an Emrakul in hand, but Emrakul being removed from the deck is absolutely huge.
Yes. And it's the reason these decks don't bother to side into more copies of Emrakul for the mirror match, is people are already gunning for it with cards like Lost Legacy.
So now Decandio, if you think about it, he's actually not in a great spot. His board's okay. He's got a tracker, got a clue out there, a pretty big Grim Flayer and a Liliana.
But he's really behind on cards.
Yeah.
Really behind on cards.
Now here's a Traverse. It's got Delirium, of course, because why wouldn't it? Noxious Gearhulk is the plan. Here is Noxious Gearhulk. Take care of the Mind Rack Demon. Did you mention the fact that it's behind on cards? There's an Ob Nixilis out there for Brian. 2 clues, potentially more on the way because there's a Tireless Tracker still out on the battlefield. Liliana is going to tick up, it appears. Going to target the Tireless Tracker, slow that down a touch.
But the bigger thing is now, you know, Decandio has to win this game straight up. There's no cheating this out with Emrakul. And BBD can also now play the game knowing kind of what's face up on the table is what's going on here. There's no big trump that Decandio is playing towards.
It's a Traverse the Uvenwald, and we saw Brennan do this in the last game. We might see Brian do it now, which is Traverse for Emrakul, and really decimate Decandio's board. You see Decandio's going to take a look at the graveyard just to see what the cost is of Emrakul at this stage. Not particularly expensive.
And when the battlefield is this sticky, the forced attack here is going to be brutal.
That's kind of the perfect Emrakul, you think about it. Mind Rack Demon, Ishkana in hand, force the draw, and now let's just see how much Brian can ruin him. You know, Matthias Hunt, if you missed the pregame show, he said this is far and away the best deck in the format, which is a pretty bold statement for him. He doesn't really speak in those terms very often.
He is measured with his comments.
Yeah.
He is very rarely prone to hyperbole.
But he feels this is far and away the best deck in Standard, and its results most recently, it's pretty hard to argue.
Since we're watching a mirror match here, so we're not getting a sense of it playing against another deck, but you can see the speed with which it gets to Delirium, how quickly it just has a mid-range advantage on the battlefield, and then Emrakul as a top end to play towards. It's a really tough mixture of cards.
And Brian going to line up what he would like Decandio's attacks to be to ruin him appropriately. And as we talked about before we went live today on the pregame show, you know, to me, the way you kind of beat this deck, you got to get under it.
That's one path, but that's also very challenging to do against a deck that can get 4/4 Grimflayers into play very easily, and Liliana the Last Hope is really oppressive towards some of the beatdown cards you would want to play in those kind of decks. That the Veteran Motorists and Toolcraft Exemplars of the world get dinged there. Ishkana is really problematic for a lot of attacking decks.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Can confirm. Challenging at times. Yeah. So it's a way to do it, you know, but it's by no means a lock. And if you stumble in the first couple of turns,
yeah, you probably just lose.
This deck shuts the door real fast on attacking decks.
Looks like Hissing Quagmire might be getting fired up here too. So Brian is controlling Decandio's turn. At the end of all of this, we'll see how the dust will settle. It will be favorable for Brian, I promise. I can promise you that. A lot of Decandio's permanents will go to the graveyard.
Ooh, and the Grim Flayer comes through for just a little Fate Seal you action on the way out.
It's a real rude dude. Looks like the top three cards here are Hissing Quagmire, Grasp of Darkness, and Lost Legacy. Lost Legacy a little late to the party.
Also won't be drawn. I think at this point, BD is just thinking about, is that card just total nonsense now that Emrakul's been cast?
Might just let him draw the land.
Yeah. Well, it might be land, Lost Legacy. Maybe even the Grasp, too. Those all stink.
Yeah, you can have all those.
Yeah, those are all awful. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, you're up. Have a Hissing Quagmire.
Grim Flayer leave all three on top. It's got to be a bad feeling.
Well, I guess Mind Rack Demon will turn some of them over.
But that means Mind Rack Demon's his turn instead of Ishkana.
Also true.
Problematic here.
Yep. Brennan is winning in the life total battle.
For another 30 seconds. Yeah.
Brian with 3 clues, Tireless Tracker that has 2+1/+1 counters on it. Ob Nixilis, which is taking down to take care of the Mind Rack Demon, down to 1 loyalty counter. BBD now with a To the Slaughter, aptly named. Now Brian's just trying to figure out, can I kill you this turn? Is there anything bad that can happen to me on my next turn? I am at 12. Don't have to worry about Emrakul anymore. Perhaps I'll fire up a Hissing Quagmire. You have to imagine Brian wants to get this over with in 2 turns.
Yep. Although Decandio is essentially locked at this point. There's no getting out of this.
That's not a great spot. 3 counters now on the tracker after Brian sacrifices a clue. Here come the beatdowns. And yes, nothing like a Pilgrim's Eye to finish off your turn. And that'll do it for this particular game. So Brian Braun-Duin is going to win game number 2 here over Brennan Decandio. Black-Green Delirium Mirror going to game number 3. Not much of a surprise to me. This matchup is pretty back and forth. It's pretty complex, but it almost feels like it boils down to one card, Patrick and Emrakul.
Well, if one person has it and the other one doesn't have access to it, and the game gets sticky, that's pretty much the end of it, which is what happened to Decandio in that game. It looked like he was going to get to Emrakul first. Wasn't clear that it was going to be game over, but he was at least going to get a huge edge. But BBD with a Lost Legacy and then his own Emrakul, the board was too clogged, and there's no coming back from that.
Sideboard yet again. We take a look here. You saw the power of Lost Legacy. Not surprising to see either of those, that card in either player's deck. Pardon me. We saw Gonti. We had a feeling that was going to come into the slaughter, Nixless, all that stuff. I mean, it's basically what you mentioned. People are going to try to get a little bit grindy, but also try to be able to handle the bigger elements.
Yep, and BBD kind of executed that sideboard plan very, very well that game. He was able to cut off Decandio's top end with Lost Legacy and then set himself up for a really good mid-range fight with cards like Tireless Tracker and Obnixilis. And both of those elements came into play in a big way that game.
Well, these players will shuffle up here for game number 3. About 15 minutes left to go. We will talk about the StarCityGames.com weekly sale. It's a very popular promotion that we do every single week. And for this week, we got some non-English cards.
Yeah, a variety of legacy, modern, and vintage staples on sale every week. Star City Games has a new sale. Starts 11 o'clock Eastern Time on Monday. The sale is live for a week, and then we rinse and repeat. Right now, 15% off thousands of non-English cards, including a Japanese Exploration, an Italian Chain Lightning, a Japanese Zodiac Dragon.
Oh my gosh.
And an Italian Scion of the Dragon.
You are unbelievable!
Still got it. Sale ends Monday, 10:59. Make sure to be coming back to the website every week. Check out the new sale.
I am blown away.
Wow.
I did not think you were going to get Scion of the Dragon. No way.
Wow.
He's back, folks. He is back, folks. The rust is off.
Someone cool me off. Oh.
We are going to take a moment here to learn.
Was it Italian? I need to know.
Well, someone on Twitter will tell us for sure. Let's learn more about Brennan Decandio, if we can. The 26-year-old from Long Island, New York, a member of Team Next Ridge Nexus with 2 open top 8s, looking for his first invitational top 8 and potentially win as well. He's got an ear photographic memory, a mistaken for Andrew Garfield, who was Spider-Man regularly, and has cut his own hair since he was 16. No wonder it looks so darn good.
Yeah, practice makes perfect and all that.
I can't imagine cutting my own hair. That just seems like a recipe for disaster.
I'm very quickly approaching the BBD due, and
we're gonna take it all off.
Yeah, I'll just do that myself.
Okay.
Gonna come back for a show sometime in 2017 and it'll just all be gone.
Thin to win.
Yep.
Just take it all down.
Just embrace my destiny and just look like a thumb. It's okay. It's time.
Grapple with the past here for Brennan's going to get him a land. It is a blooming marsh.
As I get older, it just feels more fitting, you know?
Just take it off. Who cares?
Right.
It's just fine. A vessel of nascency. We head back over to Brian. He will grapple with the past as well. He will take a swamp. The rest will go to the graveyard. Over to BBD we go. He'll draw. What land will he play? It'll be a blooming marsh. And now it is a Tireless Tracker. Decandio not going to crack the vessel just yet. Going to play a grass. We'll take care of the tracker. Now here's Mind Rack Demon. 4 cards in the graveyard. See players are picking up their pace of play a little bit because time is certainly becoming a factor.
Yeah, it's weird in a lot of post-board matchups, things just slow down, especially mid-range matchups. Here it's a little bit different in some of the games because you aren't guaranteed to have access to Emrakul, so you can kind of just win with the beatdowns.
Mm-hmm. Traverse here for Brian. He'll get himself a basic swamp and simply pass the turn back over to Decandio. Decandio with the Mind Rack Demon. Delirium, so doesn't have to worry about that there upkeep trigger. And now he will sacrifice a Vessel of Nascency. A swamp, a vessel, Liliana, and let's make it 2 Lilianas, and now she is in the grip, and now she's on the battlefield. Elevator going down. The return, we'll figure out what that's going to be in just a moment. I don't have a great look at it. Looks like it might be a Tireless Tracker. Evolving Wilds and Swamp were the cards that were turned over to Liliana.
So I believe Emrakul currently in Decandio's hand, like we saw in game number 2.
Here's a 2. Ugh. To the slaughter indeed.
Well, that's made it a lot harder.
And Lost Legacy the draw?
Because it looked like Decandio was setting up for I can win short and I can win long by having Tireless Tracker plus Mind Rack Demon plus Emrakul as backup. But now that's all collapsed.
Yeah, a lot has collapsed here. Obnixilis is here, which is a clean answer to Emrakul as well. So Decandio's plan of Turbo Emrakul, Brian is very ready for. Now there's a Ruinous Path. The follow-up is just a Hissing Quagmire. We're going to go back over to BBD's way. The ebb and the flow of these games changes very fast.
But BBD's got a lot of life to work with. He's got the tools, if he wants to take out the Emrakul.
Here's Tireless Tracker. That's a land. Clue. Lost Legacy yet again. There goes the Emrakul. Looks like a game number 2 all over again. Brian going to take a look. Decandio will be drawing a card here from Lost Legacy, exiling Emrakul from his hand. But Brian has solved the problem yet again.
Yes. And now again, Decandio's got to try to win this game straight up.
Wasn't able to do it in game number 2. Things are a little bit different here in game number 3.
And it's actually worse than straight up because BBD still has access to his own Emrakul.
Let's go over to Decandio, shall we? He'll untap and draw from Lost Legacy, now draw for his turn. You see Liliana and Tracker in hand. Brian knows about those. Brennan knows about those. You know about them at home, so he's going to leave them face up. But how does Brennan work himself out of this one? He's going to start with Liliana. Going to play a Grim Flayer, and it looks like a Vessel, excuse me. Plus the Liliana on Brian's Tracker, and we head back BBD's way.
So I guess the risk of this line is fairly low with the Tireless Tracker on BBD's side shrunk down. Not inconceivable that BBD could take care of the Liliana this turn with Decandio getting no value for it if he has a removal spell for the Grim Flare.
Going to start by cracking a Clue. That's a forest, another Clue. Crack that one too. 5-power creature. Bang, there's Grasp. Attack. Bring it down to just 1. Which is pretty effective, all things considered.
A nice looking turn there for BBD, and Decandio is on fumes at this point. Not a whole lot to work with in terms of cards. And no route to cheat the game out with Emrakul.
I'm going to start by cracking a Vessel. It's a Ruinous Path. There's a Gonti over there. Swamp, too. Gonti might be good.
I guess this is the route to Emrakul, right?
Yeah, the backdoor route. The cross your fingers route.
Yeah.
No go, it looks like. Looks like he's going to select a Ruinous Path, which is a way to take care of an Emrakul.
Sure. But the game isn't just about that from Decandio's side. He's also got to get some traction in the game, start getting back into the raw card count game. It is not as simple as kill your Tireless Tracker and move on with things, or have an answer to Emrakul and move on.
BBD will draw. Looks like Ishkana. Two black. Grasp of Darkness. See you later. Goodbye, Liliana. Hello, Ishkana.
And a bit of a heartbreaker there for Decandio that Liliana did not amount to much. Got plus twice and then died.
Not a lot going on in Decandio's hand right now. He is behind the 8-ball. He's going to take a look at that card. It's a Ruinous Path. We know that. Tireless Tracker an option right now. And just 2 lands and Hissing Quagmire and Forest. Got to try to represent some amount of strength here. Excuse me, it was actually a Liliana that he took with Gonti. So he will minus and get back Gonti and now replay Gonti. So still trying to get to Emrakul.
Yep. I appreciate this line. I think trying to win this game conventionally here is kind of off the table. Decandio's too far behind in cards right now.
Noxious Gearhulk is a selection. That one was sure of. Apologies on the misinformation with the previous Gonti as we head back over to BBD. Brian may have just peeled what Gonti was looking for.
Oh, about that Noxious Gearhulk down there.
That might be true. Here's a Pilgrim's Eye to start things off.
Find out.
Nothing like all of the powerful things that Delirium does with Liliana and Tracker and Ishkana, and then Pilgrim's Eye always showing up.
Yeah.
I'm here too.
Right.
Happy to find you a land. Contribute to the delirium.
Blue collar.
Ready to block a smuggler's copter.
Why am I here? Well, a couple of reasons. Sometimes it's a land I can get back with Liliana. It's a thing to play early on in the game. Artifact in the graveyard for various things that are looking for card types.
Mm-hmm. Not a 4 of.
Yeah.
Just a couple.
People play with things like Veteran Motorist. There's like a lot.
Yep.
There's a lot of little things.
All right. Liliana's going to bite the dust. Sure, another Ishkana. Why not? More spiders. 2 more on the way. Let's go over to Decandio. Doesn't look like Brian found Emrakul. Looks like Pilgrim's Eye may have been the draw that turn. Noxious Gearhulk. Goodbye, Tireless Tracker. Get a little life. Pass that turn back. Let's go over to BBD. He will untap with all these spiders. The biggest spider, and of course, Pilgrim's Eye.
That thing's eligible to attack.
Yes, it is.
I know one point that's coming across this turn for sure.
Hello, Traverse.
I'm still getting my point in.
Point in before casting Emrakul.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Let him know.
It's so rare, you know. You got to get your taste. Got to let it wet its beak.
Here is Emrakul now. Thump. She is not happy.
Get that point in.
Yeah. I don't know if he's going to.
Fine. It's better for, I guess it's better for double blocking a menace card. But whatever.
How about a grapple with the past? All right, you missed. Good try, though.
Yeah.
Really good effort. Fire up the old Quagmire, and I'm going to kill all your things now. Thump. There's your double block.
Looks good.
Yeah, clear for takeoff. And there goes Brennan's board again. I could see why Emrakul is frustrated. I get it now.
So
I can see.
There's this quote from Mark Rosewater talking
Okay.
about the design of Mindslaver,
Okay.
where he's like, it leads to such cool stories. And to me, it feels kind of like the same story every time. Like maybe you zig instead of you zag, and you know whatever. But it does feel like Decandio kind of, like if you told him it was a different story each time, I don't think he would believe you right now. I think he would be irritated if you said that to him.
Brian Braun-Duin gonna win this match over Brennan Decandio. 2-1. The world champ is 1-0 here at our Season 3 Invitational from Atlanta off of the power of the Promised End.